All right, we'll try again. Okay, hello and welcome everybody. Thank you. Round two. Sorry for the technology issues. My name is Brooke Baitolo. I work with the North Front Range Metropolitan Planning Organization. Quiz time. What do we do? Just kidding. So let's try. Do you have a clicker? It's working. How about this one? Oh, this thing first. Okay, you can take the mouse for this time. Okay, so the North Front Range Metropolitan Planning Organization serves an area of about 500,000 people. We serve the cities of Loveland, Greeley, Fort Collins. The RideNoCo program specifically that we're here today representing serves all of Larimer and Weld counties. So I'm here today with Lisa Deaton.
And I'm a mobility specialist with RideNoCo. So I'm in the call center. So when you give me a call, I'm going to pick up the phone. If I don't, please leave a message so that I can call you back and I'll help you find transportation for you.
All right, so our main goals at RideNoCo are to improve individual mobility. So individuals can have access to the things they need to do, places they need to go. That could be the grocery store, the doctor, baseball, whatever. And then our second goal is to improve regional mobility. So we're making sure that our communities are connected and you can rely on the transportation systems that are going to bring you from one side of our community to the other. Paula, can you hear us?
I could hear us, but I went out.
Okay.
I could hear you fine.
Wiser,
Didn't want to.
intelligible. That's the
Yes, no,
important
it's
part.
fine. It was all good.
Okay, well, we don't want that. Never mind. Okay. Come on, buddy. All right. So right here, we have our phone number for our call center. As Lisa mentioned, please do leave a message for us if you give us a call and we don't answer. There are 3 staff at RideNoCo. We are all full-time staff dedicated to other tasks. The RideNoCo call center is definitely a priority, but sometimes we are busy with other things. So please do leave a voicemail if you miss us. And if for whatever reason, we're not getting back to you, please do call again. We would love to hear from you. All right. Next. So we're happy to pilot the website as well to show you all the information from the talk today. If you're interested, we can do it at the end of our presentation and then we can walk you through individually afterwards as well. Not here. Oh, we clicked the link. Oh, no. Okay. So our program began from a lot of community work with a lot of different partner agencies, especially Partnership for Age-Friendly Communities, to ensure that our community members, as we age and as things happen to us, or if we're no longer able to drive or take any other kind of transportation, that we do have options. In 2018, when they did this assessment, they found that there's just not a lot of information. It's very confusing what information there is. So there was a local need to create a centralized resource for information. So that's us. We are RideNoCo. And so the first phase of that project was to get a website together, get the call center together so that folks have a central place that they could call for information if they live in Larimer and Weld counties. The second phase of that is to have a tool on our website where folks can plan their trips and not only just go from A to B, it's going to do a car trip, like if you were to Google your location and it gives you directions. Well, those directions are typically only if you're driving, you're taking the bus, bicycling. Our website will also populate the information for volunteer transportation providers in the area and paratransit providers, as well as private providers. So things like Z-Trip, Uber, Lyft, taxis. So our website will show you all of the things available for you to take that trip that don't include just driving, taking the bus, or biking. So that's available and ready to go on our website. Our third phase of our project is to integrate our scheduling systems together. So as it is right now, you call the center and we tell you your options, you now have to go call that person to follow up on that ride. What we're working on right now is so that when you call us, it's a one-stop shop. You call us, you give us your intake information, we can tell you where you're eligible for, and we can start the process of scheduling that ride. So over the next several years, we're going to get better and better at that system. So for now, there's only parts and pieces of that are happening, but over time, we're hoping to have a one-call, one-click center. So we'll do some transitioning to talk about the transportation options in our region. I'm gonna pause here. Are there any questions right now about RideNoCo, what we do, anything like that?
You mentioned paratransit, what is that?
Absolutely. So paratransit service, do you want to answer this, Lisa? You're, okay, never mind.
Go on, go ahead.
I'll do my best. So paratransit service is service available for eligible recipients. So for example, if you lived in the city of Fort Collins and you're not able to drive, paratransit is a transportation option that you can apply for. So you could tell the city of Fort Collins, hey, I live right next to this bus stop, but I can't take the bus and I can't drive. And they, by law, have to provide you with an alternative transportation. So within every actual service route that we see in our community with our bus system, there's a 3/4 mile buffer zone that paratransit has to legally be available to folks. So depending on your address, depending on whether or not you qualify, so if you have a disability or if your age qualifies you, that is a service you can use free of charge. Now, if you live in that area, but because of qualifications, that might not work out, they also have a dial a taxi option, which is a paid taxi service, but at a reduced rate. So there are a couple different features, and we're more than happy to go into more detail there. We have one question here before, is that a follow-up to the same one?
You go ahead. Or just,
Okay.
you said it provides, does it provide transportation, let's say, from your house to the bus stop? Or does it take you from the bus, from your house to the doctor?
Correct, sorry, so great question, fantastic question. I love that you're here. You asked great questions last time too. So that transportation, instead of having to ride the bus, they will provide a taxi for you. So that taxi will roll up to your house, you will go down to it, you'll get in there, it'll take you to and from the destination that you would have normally taken on a bus if you were able to. Awesome question. Go ahead.
So if you are around in the community and you find one of these agencies driving recklessly or something, what is there a way to report? Because I saw a Z-Trip van accessible, wheelchair accessible driver one time doing some sketchy driving. I'm like, I'm not gonna use that agency. So
I hear you. So for those that may not have heard online, the question was, if you see any of these providers driving unsafely, what is the option? How do you report that information? So for all of these transportation providers on the next slide, let me go back. Yeah, go back if you would. Maybe. There you go, one, you got it. There we go. So all of these providers should have a phone number on the back of their vehicle that says, how's my driving? There should be an identification number on the car itself, on the vehicle itself. You should be able to call in and report that. Barring that, if that's not available, make sure you're noting the time and location. And all of these systems are tracking their vehicles at any given time. So they will be able to cross-reference when you're calling and the information you give them so that they can kind of resolve that situation. I will say all of our providers are human beings. All of the people who are driving are human beings. Mistakes absolutely happen. None of this system is perfect. So it's really important to know if, for example, something happens, your ride gets confused or they don't show up, these are human beings, they make mistakes. It is really important to follow up with the agency to let them know, hey, I scheduled a ride and they didn't come. That is absolutely okay. They are used to that feedback and are going to provide you some alternatives. So definitely, please do. Our community needs to be safe. If they're driving unsafely, please do say something. That would be great.
I have also found too that when I take an Uber, the address takes the car to the back gate, back fence, because it backs up to a main street rather than to the front door.
Yes.
I'm like, wait.
Yes, so a lot of these providers too, so the comment was, sometimes if you put in just address to address, it's gonna take you to a place that isn't accessible to get out of the vehicle. So same thing, these are human beings, they know the system, more than likely than not, they have dropped people off at these locations before, and particularly for those that need mobility assistance, if they have a cane, a scooter, a wheelchair, etc., they have a pretty good understanding of where they should probably be dropping you off. But in the event that you can't, these providers are definitely open to taking you to a different spot. You just have to have that conversation with folks of, oh yeah, no, I can't get out here. Can you circle around and go the other side?
I think it's just pre-programmed into the room
Yeah, it's some sort of
algorithm.
says this is where it needs to go.
And they pulled up to the back door and I happen to be looking out the window and I happen to see them, but it's like, wait, I was expecting you at the front door.
Absolutely, yeah, and there's bugs like that, so I think maybe there's follow-up there too. Go ahead.
I just wondering if you think you might be eligible for these. what is, where do you, where is it, what is the process for putting in your application? Is there a phone number or agency to call?
Sure, so a great first step would be to call RideNoCo, so we can
Okay.
help you narrow down what you're eligible for. And we'll give you the phone numbers for that.
Right.
And once you get to the location process, so say you're eligible for City of Fort Collins Paratransit, they have a dedicated phone number for paratransit. So we will give you that phone number, you will follow up with that person directly. Now, the next step with them, they will guide you through. If you need assistance with the application, they can provide that. You have to fill out that application, and for paratransit specifically, you need to provide supplementary information from your doctor or other documents that you might have to justify why you need the service, because they just need to know what the mobility need is and how they can accommodate. Yeah. One more question before we move on?
Did you say there was an age qualification?
Some of these, yes, so some of these services are available to folks who are 60 and older. I believe all of these services are available to people with disabilities that are 18 years or older. And Lisa is gonna walk us through each of the individual providers, and you'll see on the slide if they have an age requirement and if there's anything else that you need to know. Sure? Awesome questions.
Good. Okay, when Brooke was talking about the fixed route service and paratransit service, come on. There you go, thank you. So, this is also in your packet. We got Fort Collins, Loveland, Berthoud, Johnstown, Greeley. So the dark lines is the fixed route bus service, and the little bubble around it is where the paratransit will go. So, like she said, you need to live within 3/4 of a mile from the fixed route bus service. So this shows the transportation services in the area, and over on the right is, the left is at the park. And they also have a shuttle service called the Peak, and it's seasonal, and when they don't run, Via Mobility Service is kind of the backup for that. And that's an on-demand ride service that you do have to submit an application for. Okay, I'm gonna leave it off. That's not working.
I'm gonna send a message to Lynn.
Okay. Oh, how do we get this to forward? Oh. Okay, so I'm gonna be talking about different services, and then towards the end, I'm really gonna narrow it down to the different providers. So we'll talk about public transportation service. One thing to consider when you're talking about riding the bus is you gotta plan, and you gotta think about how long is it gonna take you to get to the station or the stop? How long is your actual trip going to be? Do you have to transfer buses? And then how are you gonna find your way back to the beginning? Another tricky thing is the first and the last mile. So if you don't live right next to a bus stop, how are you gonna get there? And I understand people do have some mobility issues and they can't hop on a scooter or a bike. So it's always, can you walk there? Can you maybe have someone take you there? And more tips about public transportation is, I know that Transport has a great app. It has live tracking. If you're at a bus stop, there's always a sign at the stop and you can text and it'll tell you right where your bus is, the arrival time. You can even look at it real life on a map. So I'm sure other providers do that as well. I know Transport because I used to work for them. And then of course, if you're stuck, don't know what to do, app's not working, and you're like, help, you just call the agency. They all have customer service lines and they always pick up. So another thing I get a lot of calls about are civil. Yeah.
Do you want to mention this on-bus travel training
Oh,
at
yes.
the bottom?
So we can assist with travel training. We can get together with the agencies and, put on a presentation like this, get on the bus, ride around and give you a good education about how the bus works. Yeah, it's always scary to get on the bus if you don't know what you're doing. Okay, a lot of calls I take are people getting out of surgery or they had some kind of sedation and need to know, how am I gonna get home after this? I don't have a ride. So it's always advised, plan ahead, register with the different companies, and always make sure, if you had anesthesia, will they take you? I can't remember the one that does. Do you remember, Brooke?
I don't.
Okay,
Sorry.
we can get back to that one.
But I just took somebody for something where she was being anesthetized. They would not have allowed her, they said you cannot come by Uber or Lyft or anything.
Okay.
You have to have a person who's.
Like a family
I
member
had-
or a friend?
Yeah, I had to sign in and then they called me when she was 15 minutes ready to go or something like that.
Okay. I wish I could remember who it
Yeah,
was.
we can certainly
So-
follow up.
Something, I know, I've heard that there's something, but I haven't put it to practice, so.
Yeah, because I don't think that Z-Trip, Uber, or Lyft want that responsibility of taking someone. But there is someone out there, and we could get that information and get it all out to
That'd be
you.
great. It comes up a
Yeah.
lot in our solo age groups, because
I
all of
bet.
our friends who have having cataract surgeries or endoscopies or colonoscopies, or those kind of things that are just, but you have to have somebody that, other than this, so it'd be great, and we'll send out the information if you can. find
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I remember Corey telling me about it.
Yeah, great, thanks.
Okay. Come on. Oh, no.
Oh, I was gonna say, that looks like Joe Biden.
Happy to introduce you.
So I'm gonna talk a little bit about the nonprofit providers that are in certain areas. So in Estes Park, Weld County and Carbon Valley, we have Via Mobility Services. They serve a lot of communities, but we're focusing on our part of the land here. And then in Berthoud, there is RAFT, which is I can't say that, rural alternative for transportation. And then we have Saint, and Saint serves Fort Collins and Loveland. And then I put in 60+ Ride, they're over there in the pink in Weld County. Okay, so if you have Medicaid, when you call the Medicaid phone number, they'll send you to IntelliRide. They'll schedule the service for you. And also, if you have Medicare, there might be a transportation benefit that they offer as well. So IntelliRide mostly works with Colorado's Medicaid program, but also check if you have Medicare, if you have that benefit as well. And that's for non-emergency medical transportation. If you're a veteran, there's a couple of places that offer free transportation, volunteer. So there's Qualified Listeners, they're a nonprofit, and they serve Larimer, Weld, and Boulder counties. It's a free service to veterans and their family. And it's on demand, so you call, I believe they need about 24-hour notice to come and get you. And it's for anything. It can take you to the doctor, the grocery store, any kind of errands you need to run.
I noticed on your website that this agency, the Qualified Listeners, does not have wheelchair accessible vehicles. Do you know when that will be available?
I was speaking to the person who runs that, and they're working on it. So he didn't give me a timeline. I know, I wish they had that transportation. I believe they drive their own vehicles. That's why they don't offer wheelchair accessible vehicles. And then another veterans option is the VA, called Vet Ride. It takes you to the VA clinics in Fort Collins and up to Cheyenne. And again, it's a free service for veterans. American Cancer Society has a program called Road to Recovery. If you are going to any cancer-related appointments, they provide a free transportation service. And that's in Larimer, Weld, and Boulder. Really, they're nationwide. and it's free. Okay, this nonprofit is called A Little Help, and they provide all kinds of services, and it's basically matching people in your neighborhood to help you out. And then they have other volunteers, like high school students that can come and help you clean your yard, things like that. They're not specifically a transportation provider, but if you sign up for their services and you need a ride, you can always ask them. And they serve Fort Collins, Loveland, Berthoud, and sections as well.
And there's tech help.
Yeah.
I mean, they would just, but you have to pay them.
Oh, you do?
I don't know, I'm asking you.
No, from what I know, it's all volunteer and it's all free.
Wow.
You have to pay a little help. Although they do have some things that you can pay for, but they're trying to do more and more without any charge. So, because it's mostly by volunteers, but there is some administrative costs that they try to cut. Sure.
Thank you. My clicker worked well. Okay, now we're gonna go into the different cities. So Fort Collins services. We've got transport. So of course, they have their fixed route service all throughout Fort Collins. And they also offer what's called a flex route, which takes you Fort Collins to Loveland, Berthoud, Longmont, and Boulder. And in, I believe it's Longmont and in Boulder, you can connect to RPD if you wanted to. They offer the dial ride paratransit service and the dial ride taxi service as well.
Do you have any idea how, like, far in advance if you're calling dial a ride, you need like give them 24 hours notice for a ride? Have you ever heard anything about
Let
that?
me take a look. Transport. I have to look at that. We'll do that at the end. I'll hop online and find out what their time frame is. Okay, and have you all heard of Mustang? Okay, so they pick up at the downtown transit center. They take you all the way down to Denver, and Mustang is all over Colorado. So you can get all the way to Grand Junction, all the way south. They also have seasonal bus routes for at downtown transit center. If you want to go to a Bronco game, they have that seasonal service. They have shuttles that go up to the ski areas and also into Estes Park.
You had a question about dial-a-ride, correct? So their reservations can be made up to 24 hours and 14 days in advance of the trip. And they've got a website that's on our website too, so we can go to it there.
Okay, and then there's the Greeley Evans Transit. I was talking about this earlier about the Pooter Express. So this route connects Greeley to Fort Collins and has stops in Windsor along the way. And the Greeley Evans Transit, in case you happen to be over there, they also offer the paratransit option as well, just like transport and coal. And then in Loveland, here's the coal. So they have their fixed route service. They've just added a new route, which takes you across I-25, which is really great. They have a brand new station, which is on, is it Lincoln?
I believe so.
I get Lincoln, I get those one ways mixed up. So again, they have a dial-a-ride service, but it's just within the Colts bus route area, just like transport's dial-a-ride is in their area. I'm actually going to a meeting next week to see if anyone's talking about bridging that gap.
Yes. I see the dollar sign there. It's not like, transit. They charge a fare.
They do.
Okay.
Transport's been free ever since COVID-19 started, but the Colt is charging. And I believe for 60 and up, it is something like 60 cents.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Quite affordable.
Yeah.
Okay, and providers that serve both Fort Collins and Loveland. So Heart and Soul Paratransit, they are wheelchair accessible. They do charge a fee, but they serve Fort Collins, Loveland, LaPorte, Timnath, and parts of Wellington. So again,
Any idea what that fee is?
it's based on distance.
Okay.
So you have to call them and tell them your start and your end point, and they'll give you a price. And then we have seats. They serve Fort Collins or Loveland. Yeah,
Do you have any clue on how people can, because you can only get to Harmony, I think, when the Fort Collins, Saint, and then what do you do? That's been a challenge, because so many of us go to Banner clinics in Loveland, and you can't get across all the way there, and.
yep, that's something that we bring up all the time at our mobility committee meetings.
Yeah.
That is definitely a gap. What I recommend is the flex bus, but not everyone can take, you know, the public transit.
Yeah.
So that's something that we're working on, and hopefully will change soon. Because I hear that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is VIA or anybody like that that's, or do they do better or anybody else?
Well, they're just in Weld and in
Oh,
Estes.
okay.
Currently.
Currently, yeah. I know, little talking, maybe we get them over here. That would be huge. That would be a huge help. Lisa? Yeah.
Well, I'm confused with all of these different services. There seems to be almost too many. You can't quite figure out how are they different from one another? Are they different? Are they the same? Is it, what? Are they like a bus? Are they not like a taxi? There's something to identify. How are they different?
Sure. Yeah, on the slides, you'll see, like, I think here, it's volunteer driver based. So people drive their own vehicles and they'll come to your house and pick you up. Let me go back a little bit here.
You know, Lisa, it might be better. Let's do the website real quick
Okay,
to visualize. Because you're right, it's confusing.
it's very confusing.
And it would be nice if they were all working together.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
Okay, so I'm gonna drag this over so the folks online can also see. Oh, not like that though. How about like that? Okay, so here's our RideNoCo website, and this is one way to visualize and where you're going. When you first type in our website, rideno.co. You can scroll down here. My favorite particular button here is this all transportation options. But you can look specifically at public transit, transit for older adults, wheelchair accessible transportation, and commuter options. I like this all transportation option because you can specifically go down here and select the city that you're starting in. And it can narrow down the results based off of that. So to your question, I'm not gonna put anything in, this is gonna be all of the results. So we have them separated by public transit, so that's typical bus system, as you know. Nonprofit and volunteer, so just like Lisa was talking about, these are folks who offer time in their vehicles. They might actually have a company vehicle that they've gotten from the Colorado Department of Transportation or a donor that they use to provide transportation to their community. Then we also have veterans transportation as its own category, non-emergency medical transportation. So this is to avoid folks taking frequent trips in ambulances. This is a very specific form of transportation. Some of these duplicate in this particular area, but that's one of the things, one of the identifiers that people sometimes look these things up for. Some senior centers provide transportation, micromobility, so those scooters and bicycles and things. And then the commercial service, so things that you're gonna have to pay for. So that all starts to fall in here. So that's where we see the Ubers and Lyfts and Z-Trips. So yes, it is confusing. It is difficult to know who provides what. And that's what we're here for. So you let us know, but if you're ever feeling frisky and you wanna go on the website,
Yeah, let's see what
feel free. Who wants to volunteer? Where do you live?
Fort Collins.
Fort Collins. All right, well done. All right, so we could go to Fort Collins. You can also click any of these buttons. So if you want it to be wheelchair accessible, for example, we can click that. And then we can scroll down and we can see what options are available to you.
So far, all of them.
Quite a few.
Yeah.
And then when you hit these plus signs, you can get more information. So
Uh-huh.
once again, as she mentioned, American Cancer Society, that's specific to folks who are going to and from cancer treatments. So you'll see, when you go through there, you'll read that service detail section. It's very important to see whether or not you're eligible. But as we said before, it's a lot of information, it's very confusing. Feel free to call us. If you're looking at this and you're like, man, I just don't know, and I don't want to call 12 people, I'd prefer to call maybe 3. Like I said, talk to us in a couple of years, we might have it all dialed in, but currently not quite there. So is that helpful?
Well, I just have one more question.
Sure, yeah.
What if a person, particularly an older person, doesn't have access or doesn't work a computer or a
Yes,
cell phone?
Yeah.
Absolutely,
And many older people do not.
absolutely. And that's why we have the call
What
center.
do they?
So we have the call center specifically for those folks who can't use that website or don't have the ability to get on the phone, the mobile phone. I mean, and it's complicated. This is a lot of information to put on a cell phone in general.
Yeah.
We've optimized the best we could, but we're not doing apps. We're not doing any of that. We want this as accessible as we can possibly make it. But you're absolutely right. And that is why we always have the call center component of our service. We want people to be able to just pick up the phone and go, what do I do? So that is one. Now, in terms of other accessibility things, so say somebody can't even call on the phone. We're also actively working with our human service providers in the area to see and train them on these resources so that when you're having your appointment with them, or if they're checking in on you, if it's a home health aide, for example, they're already familiar with the system and they can schedule it themselves. Folks can schedule on your behalf as well. So there's a couple options there. But you're absolutely right, and we're trying to be really mindful of that. So if there are other accessibility things we're not thinking of, please let us know. Our entire website can be translated in over 100 languages. Our call center is available in both English and Spanish, since I am bilingual. And then we also have an interpretation over the phone service for over 120 different languages. So accessibility is #1 for us.
Do you have a simple printed brochure for, as well?
So glad you asked. It's like we hired you. We're looking for another bag.
We can choose that.
Oh, we certainly do.
Is there anything in the bag? Oh.
There's a card in there.
Okay, so the card is the first kind of abridged version. Lisa currently is in the throes of doing our brochure, which is a much more robust, very large description. We also have a program manual that if you're really raring and wanting to learn everything, we are happy to send you a copy. Yeah.
The translation services, do you have supports for ASL or exact sign language as well as Braille?
Yes, so the Braille we'll have to do by request. We haven't gotten one yet, but I think we want to look into that. I'm in charge of our language access plan, so those are absolutely included in that. So over the next several months, we're going to figure out what that looks like for us. For ASL specifically, so our website is optimized for a lot of different inputs for that. So there are kind of those, like for folks who can't see very well, we can make it an audio version. There is an audio version of our website available, but for folks who are hard of hearing or deaf, we're also looking into how can we visualize this in a different way. Luckily, the website does present information really well. So for folks who are hard of hearing, you can see that visually. But we need to look into a little bit more of that, of what that feels like for somebody who's calling or using one of those services and they're not able to hear us on the phone. So great point.
As well as dyslexic font.
Yeah, so we can look in that as well. I believe there are settings on this that have it automatically through the Google Translate function in the bottom, but I will triple check for you. And there's color stuff as well. So for folks who have different types of color blindness, some of the colors on our website, like we've tried to optimize our colors to the best that we can. Most common color blindness is red-green color blindness. As you can see, there's a lot of blue and green on there. But we try to make sure that for folks who can't maybe see certain colors, we're really optimizing that. But we do have alternative web pages that we can point them to. But all good things to check over my next couple months looking at that. Okay, back to Lisa. Okay.
Thank you. And we talked about SATE, right? Okay, I want to make sure. Okay, let's go to Estes. So like I mentioned before, the peak is their shuttle service. It's seasonal, fixed route service. But if you have a certain place that you need to go, that's not on the fixed route, you can request what's called a deviation request. So you call them, the day before and say, hey, I need to get here, they should be able to accommodate your request. And it's all handicap accessible and it's free. So again, the service available to section tells you who can ride. So it's 60 and older and 18 and over with disability. And then VIA, we're repeating things here. VIA is the backup for when that seasonal service is not running. We call VIA, it's free in Estes Park. And they also serve parts of Johnstown and all of Weld County. And in Berthoud, we have a service called BATS. The area that they serve is just within Berthoud, and they also do trips to Loveland and back. Not the other way around though. So your trip has to start in Berthoud, go to Loveland, and get back to Berthoud. And again, same thing, 60 and older, 18 with disability, door-to-door service. And then we have RAFT. They serve just the Berthoud Fire Protection District and service just outside of those boundaries that you see on the map, on a case-by-case basis. And these are the commercial services. So we have Heart and Soul, which Larimer County over there, and Z-Trip, which covers Larimer, Weld, and they just expanded to Denver. That happened last week.
So is Z-Trip like a taxi or an Uber or a?
Z-Trip is like a taxi, yes, but they do accept Medicaid. And they do also have wheelchair accessible vehicles. Yep, here's their information right here. So, yep, Larimer, Weld, Boulder, and Denver, 5 years and up, anyone can ride Z-Trip. And when you call to schedule a ride, let them know that you have Medicaid. And you can get rides 24/7 with them. I'm sure we've all heard of Uber. So Uber is an app-based service. Again, it's like a taxi service. When you call, you do have to request a wheelchair accessible vehicle. It doesn't cost, and it's based on their distance. And Lyft, just like Uber, same thing, you need to have an app. And you can schedule a ride, you know, they'll come right on the spot, just like a taxi service. Does require a smartphone. But for those who don't have a smartphone, there is a company called GoGo. And what they do, you call them, it's just like using Uber or Lyft. They'll find you a ride. They're like a third-party administrator for Lyft and Uber. So if you don't want to use an app, you can always call them and they'll schedule the ride.
Does it cost anything?
Yeah.
Go.
It's, that I don't know for the service.
Uh-huh.
I don't think there's a fee for the service, but it's gonna be the regular Uber and Lyft charges.
Okay.
Well, we will double check and get back to you.
Yeah, that's something I hadn't thought about.
The reason I ask you is, Paula and I made a presentation to Kiwanis
Uh-huh.
this morning, and one of the guys said that, there are people who would like to use Uber, but they can't handle the app.
Yeah,
You know, and so this might be an alternative for them.
oh, for
But I
sure.
just wondered if it would cost them anything to use that alternative.
Yeah, she's gonna,
Doing the Google.
she's Googling.
Okay.
Okay, they charge a small concierge fee of 27 cents a minute from the start of the ride, plus the vendor's fare. But let's see, I'm gonna look into how they charge that. I don't know if they do that over the phone or if they tack that onto your Uber person and
Probably.
they reconcile that later. So I'll keep Googling while y'all continue.
Well, that's at the end. So now we can open up for more questions.
I have one.
Okay.
I don't drive, I use buses.
Uh-huh.
I can usually get to see my specialist doctor here in town. But sometimes he requires me to go to Loveland down at the big hospital, whatever it is, MCR. And the only way I'd been able to get there was with a service provided by my insurance. Well, that changed this year.
Oh, no.
So when I'm looking at the Loveland map, transit map, I'm not seeing that it goes to UNC. So would I have to go all the way to Loveland? No, I can just call you. Is that right? I can just call you and say, how do I get from here to there without taking transit or whatever? But I can just call you.
Yeah, and I'll try to figure that out for you. Is it MCR you need to get to?
Yeah, out there by the interstate.
Okay.
Yeah, it's MCR.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering with Colt new, but it's getting to Fort Collins to Loveland again.
See, I just picked up their brochure and I didn't see that it went there.
Yeah,
Which-
let's chat after, because this is a
Yeah.
unique situation. But we can definitely look at it. One thing that's important to know too, sometimes, for example, if you were eligible for paratransit, they do kind of a transfer, because you would have to transfer buses, right? You'd have to transfer from Fort Collins to Loveland to get to that spot. We're working with the paratransit providers because they will do vouchers to cover some of that trip with their other provider. And so City of Fort Collins is trying to make it easier for City of Loveland folks to go to and from. So we'll follow up with you directly after this, so we can kind of get the details out, see if you're maybe eligible for something else. And then we'll follow up with you about that particular trip.
Well, I appreciate you wanting to talk to me tonight, but this is maybe gonna happen once a year. So,
Yeah,
you know, I can, again, call you.
absolutely. Absolutely.
I can work at computer a little bit, I can, you know, but sometimes it's just like, no.
Yeah.
It's over here.
And that's what we're here for. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. You had something.
Wellington.
Oh, yes.
What about that Wellington? My kids live real close to Wellington, and I don't wanna have to call them to come and get me sometimes. I don't know if they'd be happy, but
You're in Fort Collins
I live in Fort Collins.
and they're in Wellington.
So there, when you want transportation to Wellington, sorry, I missed the first part of your question.
You want to get to Wellington, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
and maybe that. It's.
Maybe if they don't want. They'll send you right home, but.
So Heart and Soul Paratransit will go to parts of Wellington.
But that is paid
It's
service.
not that big, so, you know, that's not an issue.
Yeah, so Heart and Soul is definitely a paid service though, so that's a member-based kind of a subscription thing that you do with them. So you wouldn't have to pay for the ride, but yes, there are folks who will.
Is
take
that
it.
mileage based?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Again, I can call
Hmm?
when
You
that,
can call me.
we're gonna get to know each other.
Absolutely. So one really important thing to remember that Lisa mentioned before, if you think you're gonna be needing transportation, or if you can anticipate at some point in the next 5+ years of your life that you will need one of these services, give us a call. We'll figure out what you're eligible for, or you can play around on the website and get registered in advance. These places do not drop you from the list if you haven't taken a ride. They will keep you on the list for a very long time. I'm sure different places decide to drop people at different rates. Our understanding is if you can get registered months, hopefully, before you're gonna need the service, you're gonna get the fastest possible response time. Especially with those volunteer providers, because they are reliant on how many drivers they can get. And just like anything, it is very difficult to staff. It's hard to get people consistently to come in. And so if you're giving them advance notice as best you can, and you're already registered, you can get that ride a lot more quickly. So for example, if you were gonna use Saint services here in Fort Collins to just an inside Fort Collins trip, you wanna go to the grocery store, go back home, you gotta get registered with them. Takes about 3 weeks, because there's a lot of emailing back and forth, there's a lot of paperwork and things that might have to happen. And then when you need that ride, their website will specify just how many days they need, but typically they'll accept, you know, our providers tend to accept information about your ride more than a week in advance. Some folks need a little bit less time, some folks have plenty of time, but especially with those volunteer services where you're receiving free transportation, we wanna make sure it's on their radar as soon as possible. So please do keep in mind, if you call us and you say, hey, my doctor appointment is tomorrow, or 2 weeks from now, or even 3 weeks from now, we may not be able to give you something, but we can refer you to the taxi service, of course. We can say, yep, if you're able to pay, take a taxi, here's the number. But if you do wanna get in with those services, give yourself some time, register in advance.
Okay, and to clarify that issue, you need to register if you want to use the volunteer or free services.
Correct, right.
You don't need to register if you're using a service that isn't volunteer or free.
Depends on the service. So Z-Trip taxi service,
I'm sorry, what tax?
so Z-Trip,
Yes,
Uber and Lyft,
yes,
you don't necessarily, you gotta have the app or you gotta call them.
yes.
Those ones will provide same-day transportation. For Heart and Soul Paratransit, you gotta get registered.
Because it's a volunteer.
Part of it is, Heart and Soul does charge, but they are a member service and they have very few drivers. So they have to make sure that folks, they got the information, they gotta make sure that you filed the liability paperwork and things like that. So some of these agencies are receiving federal monies, and with those federal monies come some strings. They have to make sure that you're taking their intake paperwork and going from there. Whereas taxi services have a little bit of a different agreement. But if you're using, for example, your Medicaid for those rides, they'll also need some of that documentation as well. So just kind of think a little bit about what that trip looks like for you. But yes, there are folks who can do same day. It just depends. And then the same thing happens with those volunteer folks where you gotta get registered a little bit more. So definitely if it's a free service, kind of start thinking, oh yeah, they probably have an intake system and I probably need to give them some time.
Yeah, I think a good way to think about it is, if it's a fixed route bus service, you don't have to do anything, you just get on the bus. If it's anything other than that, you probably need to apply for it and go through the whole registration process and then give yourself time to schedule those trips. Even with the paratransit service, like through Transport and Colt, you have to apply for that. So, yeah, if you're just riding a bus, you don't need to do anything else, you have to do something. The simplest way to break that down.
And as per usual, questions, give us a call. Happy to help. Go
I
ahead.
have a couple. Is there, following up with what she was hoping for, a paper visual, especially if like internet service is down or whatever, or the lack of connectivity around this area?
Yeah.
To do something visual with colors as well too, like a.
You've got a whole map written. Look at you go. You're halfway there.
Yeah. A chart, and then you have bullet points of where people or agencies do stuff, and then an X.
I do.
Something for like anesthesia or something.
So look at how fast you work. Look at what you just did. You created it just like that.
This is another thing that I'm working on. So it breaks it down, provider, public transportation, and commercial services. So it shows area, what kind of service they provide, the costs, and the contact info.
And sometimes this is good to have like a quick reference to.
Yeah.
Like I'm in a panic mode or something, helping somebody else as a caregiver, maybe.
Right.
Which agency was that again?
Yeah.
And then if they're maybe color coded or colors, perhaps, but then there's some people who don't do great either, so.
And along with that, I would suggest large enough to see these maps.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. We'll make it happen.
I'm wondering too, is there a way to connect with other agencies down in the Denver area? Because sometimes some children have to go to children's hospital down in Denver, and the trip gets expensive.
Yeah, so starting here, and yeah, getting down there. You know, I think that comes up a lot too.
So that's tricky because currently, other than our veteran services, other than American Cancer Society, Road to Recovery, other than the specific transportation folks who will take you anywhere, some folks will take you to Wyoming. There is not currently a system in place to get anybody from here to specialty care in Denver as a volunteer transportation. Now, the first thing we always want people to try is call your insurance. You never know what you're already paying for.
Yeah.
Some folks already have transportation coverage that'll cover a ride. Now go into Denver, might use up all of that. So you have to have a really good conversation with your insurance provider, figure out what that looks like. But sometimes you will already have eligible rides. As for the Denver conversation, we are part of the MPO, of course. And as the MPO, we have to, by law, have mobility committees in each community that we serve. So the 2 counties that we have, and then a combined one. So we take comments like this from these trainings, calls that we get on this call center, and we bring them to transportation providers, community members, elected officials that attend those meetings. And we tell them, here's the problem, how do we solve this? And that's how we're fixing a lot of these gaps. There are providers on our website that came into existence specifically because they were brought up at these meetings. So Denver conversation is happening, it's happening consistently, and we're working actively with the folks in Denver to try to figure something out, because we have a ton of need in this area to get to those specialty care appointments, and especially for wheelchair transportation. So it's on the radar and we're trying, but please do continue to bother us about it if nothing's happening. This is one of those things that needs a lot of community support to make sure that it happens. So if folks want to come in and present to our groups, we would love that. We love when community members come in and present to these officials, because they don't often see what it feels like to be an individual trying to navigate a system that's broken. And so you can come in and share your story, and that's a totally different thing than them hearing from us, hey, we got 40 calls this month. What are we doing about this? So those are some options there.
And you're keeping track of all those calls that come in?
Oh, yes.
What's your funding source?
Great question. So our funding source for our particular, so RideNoCo is funded a couple different ways. We receive funding from the multimodal opportunity, multimodal, what is it? MMOS. Multimodal. Oh my gosh, this is the worst thing ever. I just wrote this 1,000 times. Okay, multimodal transportation and mitigation options fund. It's not my fault. There's a T in there. It's not an acronym. So that is from the Colorado Department of Transportation. So they provide, since this is such a huge need in our community, we did these assessment processes. It was overwhelmingly a huge need in our area. CDOT provides a lot of that funding. We also have other funding for our rural areas. It's the rural 5310 funding that also is passed through CDOT. We've got some of our own funding as well. So a couple different sources that fund this, and the reason we're able to provide service for both Larimer and Will counties, whereas otherwise we wouldn't be able to, is because CDOT has given us this ability. So we're super thankful. We like our jobs.
It's in contact with legislators too, because they're doing it.
Please do. If anyone's been peeping at that, there's a lot of things happening right now in the legislature regarding transportation. We don't have opinions. However, you should check it out. Other questions?
Do you have any sense, this is just the buzz of, is Uber pretty well staffed at this point up here, or are they kind of, you sometimes have to wait, is there not people available? I know it was a real problem during the pandemic and shortly thereafter.
Yeah, I don't know about Uber and Lyft.
Uber, I'm not sure.
I don't use it.
I heard today on NPR that Lyft drivers, 70% get something about their fares, or the good chunk of the fare. And then the other 15% are gonna get bumped up. So it's more equitable amongst all drivers.
So that's awesome.
Yeah.
I have a comment on that. Last year, because I had insurance coverage for rides, I used Uber a lot. More than I was even comfortable with. And I never had a problem, never had to wait. Good. And it was always on a call back. I get to my appointment, get done, call them. I don't think I ever waited more than 30 minutes to get a ride home. And
What insurance did you have that did that? It's not doing it. Well, what insurance?
it was one of Aetna's.
Was it a Medicare Advantage or was it
a Medicare Advantage.
Oh, that, see, you know?
Yeah.
Always, first step, if we remember tonight, call us if you're confused.
Yeah.
But another first step that would be great is call your insurance and see what they've got for you.
Yeah.
because you never know. And there are people who have never, it's never occurred to them, and they have a service like that where they can take Ubers to and from those appointments. And so, and specifically, the thing you're asking for is non-emergent medical transportation. So that's only gonna be for medical trips. It is your health insurance after all. They're most likely not gonna be giving you free transportation to leisure trips. However, it's important to check, so calling them, do I have access to non-emergent medical transportation? So I have an update on GoGo Grandparent through the Google. It seems to be a membership-based service, so they can either do per call, so if you're just a one-time user of it, they'll automatically charge it. So since you are on the phone with them, you have to give them your payment information for the Uber, and they're including their cost for the service in your Uber fee. So it's all one stop, that's part of it. Now, if you feel like you're gonna use that service a lot, they do have a membership model, so the cost per call goes down pretty significantly. Awesome, folks. I want to be conscious of time. So other questions, anybody online? If you want to put them in the chat or jump in, please do let us know.
I have a lot of opinions. Because I've been without a car for years, many years, here in Fort Collins and other places. And I just want to put a plug in for the bus service. I think
Yes,
it's one of the
absolutely.
best that I've run into across the country. The drivers are very accommodating. I never hesitate to ask them for help. Where to go, how, you know. I just think it's a great service, and I feel bad that people have this image that it's dangerous. It is not.
Or that it's dirty or.
Dirty,
something like
no.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not dangerous at all. You can just, and people, the bus riders are helpful. Cause there's times the bus driver's busy and I don't wanna, so I'll, you know, just make an announcement. Somebody tell me where to get off, please, I'm going here. So I just wanna really encourage, I encourage people a lot to use it.
Thank you. I'm not a paid performer. Putting that out there.
No.
I also had a very good experience on the buses.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good to hear.
So one of the things that we do at RideNoCo is we provide transportation training. So one person asked about the on-bus trainings, we can talk more about that too. So if, for example, you've heard these glowing reviews of the transportation system here, say you're a Fort Collins resident, and you want to ride the bus, but you're kind of nervous and maybe need a buddy, or you just want to have someone walk you through, they do provide travel trainings. That's what that kind of thing is called. So they will go, you call them up, you say, hey, I want to do a travel training. I want to learn how to do whatever you want to do. And then they have staff dedicated to do this. This is their job. And they will take you around, they'll put you on a bus, they'll put you on a live bus, they can sometimes put you on a bus that's out of service and kind of you tour the community, have a great time with it. Us at RideNoCo, we can help arrange, so if you've got a big group, so a group like this, if we wanted to have a bus outside waiting right now and they could have taken us on a trip, that is something that we're capable of doing. So you're more than welcome to call transport yourself, but also you can call us and say, yeah, you know, I heard about that travel thing and I can't remember what I need to do. We're happy to help you get connected. It is an excellent thing to do. I have all the resources in the world to know how to ride the bus and I was still too chicken to do it. And so I had wonderful friends at Transport and do this for a living. And I was like, please teach me how to do this. I don't know. And I can't read the schedules to save my life. I don't know when it's coming and when they're gonna bring me home and what happens if it's late. And it was just so overwhelming and so much information. These people are amazing at guiding you step by step. There are transportation trainings like that for bus staying, for the MAX, for Colt, for Get, all of them have this type of training available. So yes. No,
Yeah.
Regions like over Greeley. Yep, Greeley, so Get is the Greeley Evans Transit, and they absolutely do. Yep, we've done several in Greeley with them. So you're welcome to reach out to us if you got a group of friends that want to do it together, or if you're just an individual wanting to, we can definitely reach out and make sure, or we can just connect it with the phone number so you can do it yourself. I have another question. Please do.
Do all these agencies doing this training on the buses work with the different regional school districts with their transitions program students age 18 to 21 with disabilities and the orientation and mobility?
Transport does.
Okay.
I just spoke with someone at Transport the other day who invited us to attend one of those.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, that's all I know. I just know Transport does. I don't know about the other providers. I hope they do.
I know the transport, they don't have anything in the pipeline for expanding their bus routes further south than Harmony. Because the whole area is getting developed.
I believe they do.
They do.
I don't think they currently have the funding for it though. So as part of the city of Fort Collins budgeting for outcomes process, so that's how they try to get more budget for all kinds of projects that the city does. The expansion of the max was one of those things that happens every 2 years. So you probably wouldn't hear about it 1 year, but then you'll really hear about it another year. There's a voting process and it takes a lot of time. They can also do ballot measures and other types of efforts. So there is a lot of work right now that's happening for expansion of bus service for city of Fort Collins. So stay tuned on that one, because they'll need your help.
Well, they just extended the hours on some routes.
They did, just officially this past week, I believe, just very recently. They just
And I think it's the 22nd of this month that they're having an information meeting at Ozagon.
Yeah,
Correct.
there.
Oh my gosh, I swear we hired her, maybe.
To talk about expansion. They're planning moving or putting the max east and west up through Elizabeth, through the campus and
Oh,
stuff.
nice.
But that's one thing they're doing, yeah. So it's, you probably have to go to Transport website to get up. I'm gonna be out of town, so I can't go, but one of my neighbors might go.
So we will
Yeah, show up
actually.
at those meetings is real helpful.
It
'Cause
is.
They don't know that a need exists until somebody says something, more than one person.
Yeah.
So,
And you can ask all kinds of questions. It doesn't just have to be on the new routes. Just
yeah,
go and ask questions.
yeah.
They want us to use the bus service.
Yep, and the only way they can get money to expand it is if people use it.
That's right.
Which is kind of a hard thing, when you're like, I would love to use the bus, but it doesn't come to my house. And they're like, but you need to use the bus first to make it expand. So yes, these events, so that's the Transportation Projects Fair at the Northside Ozatlan Center on the 22nd. We'll send you, we have that flyer, we can send it to the powers that be to disseminate to you all. They absolutely could use some community input on that project. We'll be there, so you can say hi to us,
Oh.
get some more stuff.
Just a thought, if they made the using the bus so confusing that they have to offer training, I mean, I've been in countries I don't even speak the language, and I can figure out how to use a bus. And I don't have to take a training in Hungary or Paris or. So it seems to me when I looked at the maps, if, like in New York City, if the buses just went north and south, east and west, it would be kind of easy. You wouldn't have to take a training to figure that out. Maybe if they would simplify the bus, how buses run, like I said, north and south, east and west, and you transfer like you do in New York City, they would get more use.
Yeah.
Well, north and south is easy. It's when you're going east and west.
Yeah.
That's north and south, you know, like. Why is that difficult, east and west? Because there aren't as many routes, the kind of.
Their resources, part of it is resources,
Sources.
drivers, and not having enough drivers and having enough buses and so
I'm
on.
talking about the bus traveling.
Yeah,
They seem to curve around a lot.
well, they do,
So does the
they
tram.
do in order to, and they'll combine, one bus will do 2 routes. One going this way, one going that way, and that's to make it simpler so they don't need 2 buses. That kind of thing. And that like calling you guys, call the bus if you're ever concerned about, or we wanna, ride the bus, to just call them and ask them, tell them where you wanna go and they'll help you.
I'm sure you will, I don't.
I
question
think
that.
what you're getting at is the more systems level they go. Why is this so complicated? You should be able to just hop on one, just like the maps. You get on the map, you know what's going north and south.
Right.
You know,
Right.
when you see your stop, you get off. That's
Right.
pretty straightforward. They don't even have maps at the stops, because they
And there's
know
no
that
training
you know.
needed.
Sure. And I think eventually with more investment, more time, we can get to that level in a transit system like Fort Collins, like Loveland, like Greeley. These are all things that take a tremendous amount of time. And what you're describing is one of the biggest barriers that they face to
Yes.
expansion,
Yes,
is people don't want to use the service because it's complicated.
yes.
But the service cannot improve unless people use the service.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of that conversation happening of how do we do investigations? How do we look at this from a more holistic perspective to make this more usable for anyone?
Yeah.
So absolutely, and you had a comment, go ahead.
Yeah, as far as when I first started using the bus, and this was years and years ago, but when I gave up my car, I had to walk or use the bus. So you know what, you have to learn the system. And the problem, it's not really a problem, but I've got a friend who, she just doesn't wanna get on the, and I'll say, I'll ride the bus with you, I'll go with you. We don't have to go any specific place, just go. And so she'd get an idea that it's warm, it's dry, it's comfortable, it's clean, you know, and all of that stuff. And I think training's the wrong word to call it training, because it's really.
Travel
service and help.
Travel journey, travel quest.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, and sometimes that's all that people need is just to go on and experience it, and that's why we love those experiences, adventures, is because people get to go there and they go, wow, this is not what I thought it was, or you know what, it used to be pretty bad, but they've done a lot of work to make it better. That is absolutely something that we want people to see and experience firsthand, for sure. More comments?
I think what she's been saying too is like major metropolitan cities like New York, San Francisco, Paris, they've got it figured out.
Well,
With
they
multiple
probably
different
much more
modes of
money.
transportation. Why is it so
Years
different for us to do, consider
years of people.
recreating the wheel, or overthinking it?
Absolutely, and so that is, you're
So
getting
If
at,
they can work with those bigger agencies.
so, thank you, because that's exactly why the MPO exists. It's because we have a lot of agencies in our communities that are trying to do this, having an exceptional time trying to figure it out. And we always need somebody to be looking at the regional perspective of, yeah, City of Fort Collins could have the best transit in the world, but if you need to get to Loveland, or Greeley, or Denver, how does that help you? So we need folks like our agency to help with that regional conversation. So Lisa and I are part of the mobility team. We help with the actual, like, on the ground need right now. But a huge portion of our agency is doing the long range planning so that our system in the future, because you know how long it takes. I mean, if you've ever been near I-25 recently, you know how long stuff like this takes. But we need folks who are focusing on the long term of how we are making our community connected as a whole. And that is why we exist, is to make sure that everybody can get where they need to go and they don't have to rely on a car, on anything else, that they can actually use the transit system that exists within the community, or that we're building communities that are inherently accessible from day one. You shouldn't have to take the bus or drive 20, 30 minutes to get to a grocery store. We should be building our communities in a way that are supportive of the health of our community. Shouldn't have to drive that far to drive, all of those things. So that's what our agency focuses on, is how do we unite these needs together, especially in super quickly growing places like Wellington, like Fort Collins, like Loveland. So yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Do you ever do your travel trainings from Fort Collins to Boulder?
We could. We absolutely could with the flex line. Absolutely. Yeah.
Might be a good summer project.
That'd be fun.
We
That would be fun.
did a bus tank training through the partnership.
Yeah.
Well, right before, I think, the,
I was there. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we'll do bus staying, we'll do all kinds of things. I'm doing a Spanish speaking bus staying training next week, matter of fact. So there's a lot of things that we can do there.
What about a nice big map in the senior center that shows the different routes, but a big map?
It's a big one, yeah.
You're
They
right,
have
the
seniors
seniors
can't
can't
see
see well.
They
Yeah.
have one,
They
I
can't
just picked one up at the transit center, I said,
Oh, I'm thinking the senior center or wherever seniors are congregating. So they can just feel familiar.
Sure.
And it would be the beginning step. Is the bus stop at the senior center?
Yes.
Is there a bus stop?
That's what she said.
Yeah.
Crosswise, they stopped and they quit the one that was going north and south though.
There's one for the main one, Main Street.
Mainly.
Zatlan has a stop right in front of it. Yeah, but if you go to the transit center, ask the people in there are wonderful. Ask them for the big map.
Oh, there is a big map
A
that shows
big
all of
map
this?
shows all the routes,
And people can get
and
it?
then I can read it too.
Oh. But it's too bad you have to go to, just this.
Are you talking about this?
Probably, it's pretty thick.
Yeah, that looks.
So this is transport, all route map.
Well, it's even bigger than that, I think, but that's.
Yeah,
a
They
big
do
one.
have a bigger one, yeah. I
Yeah.
remember.
Is it one that you can take or just on the
Yeah,
wall?
oh, yeah.
Really?
Just ask
Just
for it.
go into the, yeah.
But it's only at the transit center.
Yeah, but she has one that's
A little-
almost that size.
Oh, okay. I'll take one.
Yeah.
Would anybody like? Sure.
Let's you and I exchange numbers.
All right, I'm gonna stop recording for the folks on the line.
Okay, good.
Right, yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else want one?
It's more people to actually just step on the bus with me.
And I also have a flex route brochure too.
All right, thank you to all of our folks online. We're gonna stop here. Please let us know if you need anything, follow up on email with our friends at PAFC if you have further questions. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you, dear.
Okay, that's just for the online folks. We can hang.
Can I get another one of these? There was a friend that couldn't come tonight.
That's part of our group.